everybody, it is Laura, and if you didn't know, I was wearing this shirt the last time. It is not the same day. It's a few days after, because tomorrow is school. And I washed this and I wore this again because I just got some new jeans that I could wear it with. So yes, today we're going to be reading this book because the other one got deleted for some reason. I don't really know why, but it got reported and somebody deleted it. But maybe you guys will like me better if I go. So on TikTok, I'm going to be actually doing the clown look, like all that stuff, while telling a story time. So if you want to see that, go on my TikTok. So yeah, let's get started. Thank you, Mr. Falker. If you already watched the last one, you know what it was about, but I have to reread it because my video got deleted. Let's begin. Sorry if I can't read that well. I'm not using my glasses because you can't see me at all. So the grandpa held the jar of honey so all the family could see. Then drizzled a ladle into it and drizzled honey on the cover of the small book. The little girl just turned 5. By the way, these words are going to be old and you might not know them. So, stand up, little one, he cooted. I did this to your mother, to your uncles, your older brother, and now you. Then he handed the book to her. Taste. She dipped her finger into the honey and put it into her mouth. What is that taste? The grandma asked. The little girl answered, sweet. Oh wait, I didn't finish. Oh yeah, I didn't finish. Then all the family said in a single voice, yes, and so is knowledge. But knowledge is like in the bee made so that's, sorry. Yes, and so is knowledge. But knowledge is like the bee that made the sweet honey. You have to chase it through the pages of the book. Aw. The little girl knew that the promise to read was at last hers. Soon she was going to learn how to read. I'm not going to show you all the pictures. If you want me to show you the pictures, just comment it down below, and I will do that. If you comment down below, I will just make a video showing you all the pages, but you have to watch this one in order to get the next one. Trisha and the littlest girl in the family grew up loving books. Her school teacher mother read to her every night. Her red-headed brother brought his books home from school and shared them. And whenever she visited the family farm, her grandfather and grandmother read to her by the stone fireplace. When she turned 5 and went to kindergarten, most of all she hoped to read. Each day she saw kids in the 1st grade across from the hall reading, and before the year was over, some of the kids in her own class began to read. Not Trisha. Still she loved being at school because she would draw, and the other kids would crowd around her, watch the magic with the crayons. In 1st grade, you'll learn how to read, her brother said. Also, by the way, I'm doing a little book reading where I read a book every Friday, Saturday whenever I have time since school starts tomorrow. I am going to do a morning routine of school tomorrow. But I'm doing a morning routine tomorrow of first day of school because I would love to do that and I would love to remember it that way. So yeah, first day of school, and I'll be starting middle school. And yeah, I will be recording. But right after this, before I even post this, I'm going to do a little clown thing on TikTok. So, actually, I'm going to post this, and then I'm going to do it. Oh, there's something on my nose. So, if you're early, you might get to see it. Let's get through this book. In the 1st grade, Trisha sat in a circle with the other kids. They were all holding Our Neighbor, their first reader. Sounding out the letters and words, they said, boy, look. The teacher smiled at them when they pulled all the sounds together and got a word right. But when Trisha looked at the page, all she saw was wiggling shapes, and when she tried to sound out the words, the other kids would laugh at her. Trisha, what are you looking at in the book? They'd say. I'm reading, she'd say back to them. But her teacher would just move on to the next person. Always when it was her turn to read, her teacher would have to help her with every single word. And while the other kids moved up to the 2nd reader, the 3rd reader, she stayed alone in Our Neighbor. Trisha began to feel different. She began to feel dumb. I'm going through this quicker because last time I was making a lot of jokes and it ended up taking a long time. But yeah, I'm not going to be showing the pictures anymore, so you can get this book. Also, this is by Patricia Polioka. I love this girl. Her books are so great. You should, if you like this book, then you should read An A for Miss Keller, which is also by her. And these books are just so good, I'm telling you. Okay. The harder the words got for the little girl, and the more and more time she spent drawing. Oh, how she loved to draw, or just sitting and dreaming. Or she could just go on walks with her grandmother. One summer day, she and her grandma were walking together in the small woods behind the farm. It was twilight. Yeah, it says twilight. Sorry. The air was sweet and warm, fireflies coming up from the grasses as they walked. Tricia said, "Grandma, do you think I'm different?" "Of course," her grandma answered. To be different is a miracle of life. You see all those fireflies? Everyone is different." "Do you think I'm smart?" Tricia didn't feel smart. Her grandma hugged her. "You are the smartest, quickest, daringest little thing ever." Right then, the little girl felt safe in her grandma's arms. Reading didn't matter so much. Oh yeah, I'm not showing the pictures. Sorry if I'm reading fast. I just want to get on with this so that I can finish my day good and strong. Tricia's grandma used to say that the stars were holes in the sky and those lights of heaven coming from the other side. And she used to say that someday she would be on the other side where lights come from. One evening they laid on the grass together and counted the lights from heaven. "You know," her grandma said, "all of us will be going there someday. Hang on to the grass, or you'll lift right off from the ground, and there you'll be." They laughed and both hung on the grass. But it was not long after that night her grandma must have let go of the grass because she went to where the lights were on the other side. And not long after, Tricia's grandpa let go of the grass too. School seemed harder and harder now. Reading was just plain torture. Even Sue Ellen read the first page, or Tommy Bob. What a weird name, Tommy Bob. His page. They would read so easily that Tricia wouldn't watch the top of their heads to see if something was happening to their heads that wasn't happening to hers. And numbers were the hardest of all to read. She never added anything right. "Line up the numbers before you add them," the teacher would say. But Tricia had tried. The numbers looked like stacks of blocks wobbling and ready to fall. She knew she was dumb. Then one day her mother announced that she has gotten a teaching job in California, a long way from the family farm in Michigan. Sorry, my dog. Let me see if I move. That's my dog back there, and she's wiggling her collar. She's scratching her neck. Come here, Zena. See, she's just a cutie. Here, she's literally down here, down there. She doesn't like being on camera, though. Shy little pup. Okay, lay down. Sit, Zena. Sit. Nope, she doesn't want to sit. Perfect. Even though her grandma and grandpa were gone, the little girl didn't want to move. Maybe though, the teachers and their kids in the new school wouldn't know how dumb she was. She and her mother and brother moved across the country in a two-tone 1949 Plymouth. Plymouth, right? I don't know. It took 5 days. But at her new school, it was the same. She tried to leave. No! Sorry, guys. Zena saw a squirrel and she started jumping. No. No. Just knocked my phone right off. No. Sorry, she's being a bad girl. Bad. Lay down. Lay down. Okay, let's continue. Let's act like that didn't happen. Bad girl, Xena. Xena. Bad girl. Bad. Bad. Sorry. But at the new school, it was the same. When she tried to read, she stumbled over the words. The cat ran. She was reading like a baby in the 3rd grade. And when her teacher read along with them, and called on Trisha for an answer, she gave the wrong answer every time. Hey, dummy, a boy called out to her on the playground. How come you're so dumb? The other kids near him, the other kids stood near them, and they would laugh. Trisha could feel the tears burning down her eyes. How she longed to go back to her grandparents' farm in Michigan. Now Trisha wanted to go to school less and less. I have a sore throat, she would say to her mother, or I have a stomach ache. She drew more and more. She drew more and more, and she hated school. Then when Trisha started the 5th grade, the school was all abuzz. There was a new teacher. He was tall and elegant. Everybody loved his striped coat and gray pants. He wore the neatest clothes. All the usual teachers' pets gathered around him. Steve, Joe, Alice Marie, Davy, and Michael Lee. But right from the start, it didn't seem to matter to Mr. Folker which kids were the cutest, or the smartest, or the best at anything. It's a nice teacher right there. Mr. Folker would stand behind Trisha whenever she was drawing and whisper, "This is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Do you know how talented you are?" When he said this, even the kids who teased her would turn around in their seats and look at her drawing, but they would still laugh whenever she gave a wrong answer. Then one day, she had to stand up and read what she hated. She stumbled through the pages in Charlotte's Web, and the page was going all fuzzy. The kids began to laugh out loud. Mr. Folker, in his plaid jacket and butterfly tie, said, "Stop. Are all of you so perfect you can look at another person and find a fault with her?" And that was the last day anybody laughed out loud or made fun of her, except Eric. He sat behind Trisha for 2 whole years and seemed almost to hate her. Trisha didn't know why. He waited at the door of the classroom for her and pulled her hair. He waited on the playground and leaned in her head and then called her a toad. Trish was afraid to turn any corner for fear Eric would be there. She felt completely alone. The only time she was really happy is when she was around Mr. Folker. He let her erase the blackboards. Only the best students got to do that. He patted her on the head whenever she got something right. He looked hard at the mean kids who teased her. But the nicer Mr. Folker was to Trisha, the worse Eric treated her. But the nicer Mr. Folker was But the nicer Mr. Folker was to Trisha, the worse Eric treated her. He got all the other kids to wait for her on the playground or the cafeteria and even the bathroom and jumped out at her and called her stupid or ugly. And Trisha began to believe them. She discovered that even if she asked to go to the bathroom just before recess, she could hide underneath the stairwell during the free time and not have to go outside at all. In a dark place, she felt completely safe. But one day at recess, Eric followed her to her secret hiding place. "Have you become a mole?" he laughed and pulled her out into the hall and danced around her. "Dumbbell, dumbbell, Molly Gotti, Mag Gotti, old dumbbell." Trisha buried her head in her arms and curled up in a ball. Suddenly, she heard footsteps. It was Mr. Folker. He marched Eric down to the office. When he came back, he found Trisha. I don't think you will have to worry about that boy again," he said softly. What was he teasing you about, little one?" "I don't know." Trisha shrugged. Trisha was sure Mr. Falker believed that she could read. She had learned to memorize the kids next to her was reading, or she would wait for Mr. Falker to help her with a sentence. She would say the same thing that he did. Good, he would say that. The next day, Mr. Falker asked her to stay after class and help wash the chalkboards. He put on music and brought out a little sandwich as they worked and talked. Once again, he said, "Let's play a game. I'll shout out letters. You write them on the board with a wet sponge as quickly as you can." "A," he shouted. She wiped a watery A. "A." "8," he shouted. She made a watery 8. 14. 3. D, M, Q, he shouted out. He shouted so many letters and numbers he walked behind her together to look at the board. It was a watery mess. Trisha knew that none of the letters or numbers looked like they should. She threw the sponge down and tried to run. But Mr. Falker caught him. But Mr. Falter caught her arm and sank to his knees in front of her. "You poor baby," he said. "Do you think you're dumb? Don't you? You think you're dumb, don't you? How awful for you to be so lonely and afraid," she sobbed. But little one, don't you understand? You don't see letters or numbers the way other people do. And I've gotten through school this all time and fooled many, many, many good teachers." He smiled at her. "Looking that took cunning and smartness and such bravery." Then he stood up and finished washing the board. "We're going to change all that, girl. You're going to read. I promise you that." We have 3 more pages left, and yet I got through this whole book shorter than when I did before, and I didn't even get through. Almost every single day after school, she met Mr. Falker and Miss Plessy, the reading teacher. They did a lot of things she didn't even understand. At first, she made circles and stand, then big sponges circles on the whiteboard. "You're going left to right, left to right." Other days, they flickered letters on the screen, and Trisha shouted them out loud. Still other days, she worked on wooden blocks and built words, letters, 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 words, 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 always sounding them out, and that felt good. But though she'd read the words, she hadn't read the whole sentences, and deep down, she still felt dumb. I'm about to cough. Okay, never mind. Excuse me. In one spring day, it had been 3 months or 4 months since they had started. Mr. Falker put a book in front of her she'd never seen before. She picked up in the paragraph in the middle page and pointed to it, almost as if it was magic, or if light poured into her brain. The words and sentences started to make a shape on the page they've never done before. She marched them off and off too slowly as she read. She read a sentence, then another one, and another one. Finally, she'd read a paragraph and understood the whole thing. She didn't notice Mr. Falker and Miss Plessy had tears in their eyes. That night, Trisha ran home without stopping to catch her breath. She pounded on the front steps and threw open the front door and ran into the dining room and to the kitchen. She climbed up on the cut board and grabbed the jar of honey. Then she went to the living room and found the book on the shelf, that very book that her grandpa had showed her so many years ago, and spooned honey on the cover to taste the sweetness, and said to herself, "The honey is sweet." and so is knowledge. But knowledge is like the bee who made the honey. It has to be chased through the pages of the book. Then he held the book of honey all up close to her chest. She could feel tears rolling down her cheeks, but they weren't tears of sadness. She was happy, so very happy. The rest of the year she became awesomely of this. Oh, I don't even need to read that part. That was the book. Thank you, Mr. Falker. If it wasn't, I'm gonna do this cheesy little thing. If it wasn't for him, she would have never been here writing books. This is a real story. This guy is real. Patricia, also known as, take out the P and the A, Trisha. This was her. An A from Miss Keller. Read it. That brought our whole class into tears. She is what you call a good writer. Study it. Okay, thank you everybody. Bye.